Hello, my name is Brant Hunt. Brant spelled B-R-A-N-T, last name is Hunt, H-U-N-T. My channel is simply called Discerning What is True. I'm going to be reading from a particular book called The Pagan Christ. This will be chapter 3 by a gentleman named Tom Harpur, H-A-R-P-U-R. This book was written in 2004, and I assume this guy probably is pretty old now. I think he was an Anglican priest. I think he kind of, I don't know if he discovered this in some ways that made him change his life, but I know this simply as he began to see some things that are completely different than what he was taught in the Anglican church. So this is called Christianity Before Christianity. This is where people need to understand really what has happened. There was no Jesus, folks. There was never a real Jesus. Never has been, you see. And that might rock your world, but it's time to rock it. Because we've been lied to for over 2,000 years. The church has deceived you. Immensely, they deceived you. Now, they have left some symbols for you, but most people don't recognize those symbols at all whatsoever. Because all of the paganism that was taught long ago in Alexandria, Egypt, was destroyed by the church. And then they had a gentleman, quote unquote, that profited by that, who decided to, both Eusebius and Augustine decided that basically they were going to make it dumbed down. They're going to dumb down the word, that is the Bible, in their way of trying to skid, I'm trying to think of what, just to manipulate it would be a better word, I guess, and to deceive people. But I've had Phil Langdon on last Thursday. We had a talk. It would be wise for you to go to that video and watch it. We talked about some deeper issues and why Phil Langdon has had some event over 9 years ago that has changed his life radically, more than even this gentleman has here, Tom Harpur. So let's get into the reading of it, and thank you. So where does it all begin? Well, the first thing he's going to give us a quotation that is from St. Augustine. This is into the what they call retractions. Quote, "The very thing which is now called the Christian religion existed among the ancients also, nor was it wanting from the inception of the human race until the coming of Christ in the flesh, at which point the true religion, which was already in existence, began to be called Christian." This astounding statement by St. Augustine, which is not a saint, but only by the Catholic Church, one of the most brilliant thinkers in the earliest centuries of the Church, utterly refutes the traditional view that Christianity, the thought of obvious Jewish roots, virtually fell from the skies as a radically new, unique, all-surpassing religion destined to fulfill or eclipse all other faiths. Now, you have to understand one quick critical thing here, folks, is that the Jews basically borrowed from the Egyptians. They created their own, quote-unquote, Trinity, which was the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, you see, which goes back to Osiris, and it also reveals also the simply with the Jesus and Mary deal also. But we've done videos on that, so we won't go into all that. So St. Augustine here equivalently states that from the inception of the human race, end quote, the Christian religion has been around, and it was held among the ancients also. Correct. I read a book called The 16 Crucified Saviors. A gentleman wrote this book. You can find it probably in PDF Drive, or actually on another particular area to discover that would be archive.org. So what is revealing simply here is that these have been always what we call stories, myths, whatever, but it was used in a way to, for those who had ears to hear, and for those who didn't, it just went right over their heads. So again, I want you to understand simply is that there was never a real Jesus. Never was, you see. But it doesn't mean that the story that's revealed in the Bible is not true in certain factors. But you have to see that this was given to those who were ready for it, and those who were not ready for it will not see it, you see. Elsewhere, speaking of Socrates, who antedated Christianity by about 500 years, he said that he was as grand a Christian as any churchly saint or martyr. Indeed, he said that Socrates' pagan brand of Christianity was as lofty and pure as the kind he himself knew. Few Christians are aware that Augustine himself received the Christian doctrine of the Trinity from the pagan philosopher Plotinus, Plotinus, who lived from 205 to 270 in the Christian era, who, quote, fed his mind on attributes of the pagan divinities and was steeped in Hellenistic rational religion and esotericism. Did not know that, end quote. Significantly, St. Augustine's words are echoed, and you'll see this, that basically words are echoed as considerable length by the church historian Eusebius, who lived from 260 to 340. Now remember, all this is setting up of this whole fight even before this, and this is what I think he's going to go into, is that there were others already, in reality, were already wanting the pagan ideas to be propagated into a wider audience in a book. And this was their hope, you see. The most important, though highly biased, early historians of Christianity, quote, the religion published by Jesus Christ to all nations and neither new nor strange, end quote, Eusebius writes, for, quote, for though without controversy we are of late, and the name of Christians is indeed new. Yet our manner of life and the principles of our religion have not been lately devised by us, but were instituted and observed from the beginning of the world by good men, accepted by God, from those natural notions which are implanted in men's minds. There's a key phrase there, end quote, in men's minds. That's where all the action takes place. Okay, that's where it all takes place. It's the all ascension or enlightenment, whatever the word you want to call it, dealing with completely a spiritual transformation. This latter concept is crucial. It explains the archetypal nature of the Christos symbolism as it occurs throughout this investigation. Indeed, his famous book, Ecclesiology History, Eusebius, the bishop of Caesarea, and one of the major shapers of the emerging Christian orthodoxy he championed, says that the Gospels of the New Testament were really the old dramatic books of the Essenes from pre-Christian days, of a group of Essenes called therapeutics, that is, healers, in Egypt. He writes, quote, these ancient therapeutics were Christians and their writings are our Gospels and epistles, end quote. Even in the 2nd century, theologian and historian Justin Martyr concealed as much when he wrote that whatever things were rightly said among the ancients, quote, are now the property of Christians, end quote. So what he's saying simply, we have taken from what they had and made it ours. He had important and numerous reasons for making such a claim that he is frequently at great pains to show that Christianity is in no way different from paganism. Of course not. Unfortunately, we'll get more into this too. In a further statement addressed directly to the pagan critics of his faith, Justin Martyr argues that in, quote, declaring the Logos, the first begotten Lord, our Master Jesus Christ, to be born of a virgin mother without any human mixture, and to be crucified and dead, and to have risen again and ascended in heaven, we say no more than what you say of those whom you style the sons of Jobe, J-O-B-E, end quote. Celsius, a famous pagan philosopher with whom Origen waged a well-known detailed debate, said, quote, the Christian religion contains nothing but what Christians hold in common with the heathen, nothing new, end quote. For this, Origen had no rebuttal, as well as an Ammonius Saccas, C-A-C-C-A-S, from 175 to 240, the great founder of the Neoplatonism, that is, quote, born of Christian parents himself, in bracket. And the teacher of Origen stoutly maintained that Christianity and paganism differed on no essential points. So the evidence section here. The words from these early witnesses packed a huge wallop for Orthodox theology, but they truly sink in only when one takes the tale to examine meticulously the evidence on which they stand. The evidence of close similarities between Christianity and other ancient world faiths is massive, detailed, and extremely specific, and quite incredibly far-flung, stretching from the Veda wisdom of the India to the Norse myths of Scandinavia, the legend of the Incas, and the original spirituality of the indigenous people of North America. The Spanish conquistador, that is Hernando Cortez, from 1485 to 1547, after his conquest of Mexico in 1519 to 21, complained in his diaries that the devil had positive taught to the Mexicans, quote, the same things which God has taught to Christendom, end quote. Early explorers in contact with North American natives had similar experiences. They don't tell you this, folks, you see. They covered it up. Without exception, though, every element of the allegedly, quote, new, end quote, uniquely revealed religion was extant before the first Christian century into traditions, practices, and literature of many other lands and people. When the Abba, Hue, became the first Christian to enter the region of Turkestan, he was filled with consternation when he found the Tartaria natives celebrating the Eucharist with bread and wine. Francisco Pizarro was amazed when he found Aztecs and Mayan rites, R-I-T-E-S, and beliefs similar to those of the Roman Catholic system. The truth is that nobody of any acumen can observe the hundreds upon hundreds of resemblance between material in the Bible and very specific passages in many pre-Christian books and scrolls and believe that this is all purely accidental. Alwyn Boyd Kuhn states bluntly that, quote, no one can make the search and discover these numerous resemblance without forming the conviction that the Bible writings are rescript, often corrupted, or antecedent wisdom literature, end quote. As I read the evidence, checked and rechecked the sources, I gradually realized the truth of this assertion. In his highly detailed 830-page Anacalpis, I'll spell that for you, Anacalpsis, by Godfrey Higgins, a giant of ancient learning, says, quote, one thing is clear. The mythos of the Hindus, the mythos of the Jews, and the mythos of the Greeks are all at bottom the same, and what are called their early histories are not histories of humankind, but are contributions under the appearance of histories to perpetrate doctrines in a manner only understood by those who had a key to the enigma, end quote. Gerald Massey, to whose lifelong study of ancient myths and symbolism both Kuhn and I owe an enormous debt, stated, quote, the human mind has long suffered an eclipse and has been darkened and dwarfed in the shadow of ideas, the real meaning of which has been lost to moderns. Myths and allegories whose significance was once unfolded in the mysteries have been adopted in ignorance and reissued as real truths, directly and divinely vouchsafed to humanity for the first and only time. Yes, that's true. The myths and allegories were now became history. That's what happened. So there was, and a lot of people in churches, almost 99 to 100% of them believed that this, Noah was in a boat and the whole world was flooded. That's all bullcrap. Or Jonah, it was actually in the whale or a great fish for 3 days. Well, we know that 3 days, actually the number 3, is metaphysical. So it has a significance there. 3 is always a key number by far, which is why the Trinity is so important, if you see. See where we're at here. I got off a little tangent here. So myths and allegories whose significance was once unfolded in the mysteries have been adopted in ignorance and reissued as real truths directly and divinely vouchsafed to humanity for the first and only time. Yes, that's what I did. Sorry, missed my point here. The early religions had their myths interpreted. The early religions had their myths interpreted. We have ours misinterpreted. See. And a great deal of what has been imposed on us as God's own truth and soul revelation to us is a mask of inverted myths, end quote. I'll continue on here. I think this is going to be it's a pretty short chapter. In fact, it's too short. Didn't expect that. I tell you what, we'll stop here and then we'll start this other chapter because this chapter looks a little longer, and we'll just go for that. So we'll stop at this point, and I'll just rejoin this in a second, and we'll start another particular video. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Again, my name is Brant, B-R-A-N-T, and last name is Hunt, H-U-N-T, and my channel is Discerning What Is True. Thank you for listening, and we'll be right back in a few minutes.